gonna stand around this town and let what others say come true. We're just good for nothing, they all figure. A boyish grown-up shiftless jigger. Now we can't hardly stand for that. Or is that really where it's at? We people.
Toronto. Give yourself a round of applause, please, guys. It's been a long, hard struggle. And I'm keeping it real. I told Dr. Welsing straight up. I said, the amount of love people in Toronto have for you, Dr. Welsing, it's caused me so much pressure these last 2 months. I told him straight up. Because you know how we know that people sometimes can get really hectic. So I'm not going to run. It was a struggle, but here we are, Toronto. And I must say that this is a very special time because what's going to happen in this city, the pendulum's about to shift, actually. We've gone through a lot of issues socially in our community, and there's a reason why this event had to happen at this particular time. The timing was perfect and ideal. It's unprecedented to see so many faces that I recognize who are from different schools of thought. You know, we have Milwaukee brothers and sisters here, the Guards of Paris, the Nation of Islam you see represented. This is the first time I've seen so many people in one place that we do want the same thing for each other, but we have different ways of getting there. And that's what I see when I see all this division. But it's time for that division to be centralized today. Right? I'll tell you straight up, the issue of racism and white supremacy doesn't care whether you're Ghanaian, whether you're born in Jamaica, whether you're a Moor, whether you're a Christian. It doesn't matter about none of that. So we gotta stop holding ourselves back in that kind of way. What I'd like to do is I'd like to let you guys know that this event has bridged generations. I see a lot of young people in here, and to me that's unprecedented. You know, because I was born in 1969, so that's when Dr. Welsing first wrote the Cress theory. You know, so I'm still young, but I've been able to bridge that gap between the young generation and the elder generation. So what I want to do, I want to show you a video clip of some young people who I've filmed for the last month and a half, giving their perspective on how racism has impacted their life. So brother, can you cue that video for us? Take this in and listen very closely to these young people. Because when we hear about our young people, we get negative images. Take this in.
In my opinion, racism exists. It's deeply ingrained in the fabric of our society. And it's something that is unconscious of the way it affects our community and our society. For myself, I certainly believe that racism exists. It's within every aspect of our communities. It's something that's systemic, and it's something that unfortunately is pushed under the rug and it's not dealt with properly.
I personally do believe racism still exists. I do see it every day where I go. One example of it would be the whole concept of light skin versus dark skin. That is a form of racism to our own people.
In my opinion, racism does still exist, and the way it exists now is a bit more indirect, whereas opposed to the before in the past is more in your face. And one scenario that I can personally talk about is institutional racism, such as schools. And like from my experiences, I grew up in the Lower Heights area, also known as Jungle, and everybody knows the ghetto has like the worst schools because the teachers have, I guess, they have a low expectations of their students, and they're often just used for, I guess, athletic abilities or bringing the school trophies. And I know like this sounds like a bit cliche, but it is like, I guess, common reality that a lot of youth in these marginalized communities face.
When you look at a lot of the different systems and institutions that do exist, here, especially like I'm looking at the context of Canada, I think that alone shows you that racism exists. Number one, if you look at the prison systems, you can see that racism exists. If you look at the school system and you see who's predominantly, failing and not doing well, you can see that there's racism, especially in Canada, when you look at our population. For example, I'm going to talk about specifically the Black community. When you look at our population in Canada and you see how small that population is in comparison, but then you look at where we're overrepresented, you know what I mean? Especially, for example, the prison system, you really see that, something is going on here that isn't right. You look at the school system, and again, you see the population that we make up within, Ontario, within Toronto, and yet we're overwhelmingly in special ed classes. We're overwhelmingly being suspended, we're overwhelmingly being incarcerated. So when you look at these types of things, you definitely see racism existing.
Of course it exists. It mostly exists because of ignorance. They fail to see why we as Black people could succeed above what they think that we can do. We can do so much more, but they seclude us. They put us in a bad category and make us think that we're less of what we really are.
It takes a big impact on my life. I mean, not everywhere, but most places like Google will get judged on my race. And I feel it affects me, but I try to not really let it bother me. I don't let it bring me down, I just try to keep it moving. I was in shoppers actually. And I was looking around, trying to find some stuff, shopping around like another person. And I noticed there was a floor walker, he was following me. And I really got tired of it, and I was like, honestly, why are you following me? He said to me, he's like, well, you look like a thief.
Oh my God.
You look like a thief.
For real.
Wow, okay.
You didn't know this man, he
I did not know him at all. I've never seen him in my life. I've never seen him before. But I noticed a little white boy stealing, like really putting stuff in his pocket. And I was just like, wow.
And he turned the blind eye down.
And he just turned away, like, he didn't even notice. He just noticed me and my friend walking around looking for stuff to steal.
So racism can often affect the way we see ourselves and the way we see others. It can affect insecurities. It can affect our family dynamics, how we treat each other, the type of relationships we develop amongst each other, our ability to work together, all sorts of things. And so it's really critical, as I was mentioning, to really understand how our community has been affected, right? And it's critical for, on a broader perspective, for those in the community to understand biases, and even though you may not intentionally want to be racist, to check your biases and to check your perspective.
Some children are going to see that even calling your friends, yo, what's up, nigga, you good? It's like a form of racism. It's like, some people think of it as a form of, no, I'm calling you nigga because you're my mom. But at the same time, it's like, those words were used in a derogatory term.
I think sometimes people don't intentionally want to be racist, but because we've been conditioned in such a way for so long that it's difficult to identify what is racism and what isn't.
It's true. Very, very good point.
So the education is critical to understand essentially what racism is.
Being an indigenous Black Canadian and having generations of experience since the 1700s, and realizing that growing up in Canada, never reading about my history or being taught this history and being in the school system, and it's like, I'm here in the country, we have a rich history in the country, and it's still not included in Canadian history. To me, that's a form of racism.
I just feel like the youth and even some of the adults need to be more educated educated on it. Some people feel that the simple knowledge that they do have, what they get from school is enough, but I feel like we should have more seminars, like reaching out to them, even though they may seem like, nah, I ain't trying to learn all about Black history. It's not school, it's my free time. You know what I mean? Like, they might like it. They might like to find out more about the history. Like, I know personally, I always wonder, like, where my roots originated from. So I know there's probably some new stuff that I want to learn too. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am deeply honored to have been invited to Toronto, and I'm really rewarded by seeing so many people. Really do my heart good. In that we've all come together to talk about racism, white supremacy. It is my opinion that the discussion of racism, white supremacy is the most important discussion that anyone can engage in at this particular point in time and in history. And it is important that we as Black people make the determination. So often we hear people say, the problem of racism will always be with us, or the problem of racism cannot be solved. Never ever think of a problem that you can see or that you can conceive of with your mind. Never think that something that you see that presents itself as a problem, that it cannot be solved. All you have to do is value yourself, value the fact that you experience something as a problem that should not exist. Respect yourself enough to tell your brain computer to go to work and help you solve the problem.